The big reveal. For those of you who saw the kind of teaser yesterday, I wanted to draw in attention for a very, very important reason. I'm not normally that guy that goes on social media and is all kind of energetic and fired up, but this needed that kind of energy. Very long story, very short. I've spent 7 years bringing incredible minds to the audience of the Behind the Shield podcast, over 800 episodes now. And during this journey, there have been some amazing things that have just been invaluable in my own life. And everyone who comes on and shares their stories brings those pieces. But there are some tools that were absolutely, incredible. So overcoming my back injury and staying physically fit to this day, foundation training, CrossFit, Strong Fit, and now Wolf Brigade programming, for example. Supplementation, CBD was a red pill, now Charlotte's Web. Doc Parsley's Seat Remedy, and then of course Thorne, the most amazing supplement company out there. But when I came to this point, when Ken introduced this particular thing I'm going to talk about today, I was actually in a very good place. I had dived back into meditation, so Headspace is something I've talked about for a long time. I'd abstained from alcohol for a month. I was doing foundation training diligently and affecting some of the pain that had built up because I'd kind of fallen off that wagon. So my barometer was already pretty good. So if it was something that was working okay, but I was in a kind of crappy place, most things are going to make you feel better. But when you're already in a good place, now you're only going to notice things that truly work, if that makes sense. So I was introduced to a product called NuCalm. And today's episode of the Behind the Shield podcast is with Jim Poole, who is their CEO and has been for a long time. Meditation, for example, we know works, but requires diligent practice. Sometimes, some people I know on the show, they can't get into it. There's even some people that have had trauma, unaddressed trauma, that have struggled to meditate. That quiet has actually exasperated their symptoms. And I found it work, but when it comes to brain fog, when it comes to true deregulation of the nervous system, it helped me a bit, not a lot. Let's put it that way. With this technology, and I urge you to listen to this episode, Jim takes 2 full hours to explain, firstly, his own journey, because he was born in a family of psychologists, and then he himself started off that journey and then found himself in business and then NuCalm, but also the genesis of this technology, which includes one of the most intelligent men that have ever graced this planet, as you will hear him describe. But it centers around the fact that each of our emotional states has an actual frequency, which they can, prove in labs. It is a measurement that is known in the science world, especially when it comes to quantum science. And we know this. Obviously, it feels different to be in deep sleep than a stress state, than that incredible flow state that some of us maybe have been fortunate enough to experience for a moment in our lives. But to then spend over 3 decades to take that science and develop a tool that can actually get the body to go into that is what I'm prophesizing about today. So NuCalm was developed almost 15 years ago now into a $6,000 machine that was used by astronauts in NASA, by Navy SEALs, by some of our most elite athletes. And even in their journey to kind of push the limits of how well this works, even monks, they went to a monastery in LA, and these monks who have meditated for years and years and years said that it was amazing, and they took these machines themselves. Well, that's all well and good, but I don't know about you, but I can't afford $6,000 to buy a machine. Well, with the incredible growth of smartphone technology, about just over, I think it's 2 years ago now, very, very short amount of time, they were finally able to put this into an app so that you, me, everyone else, anyone who has a phone, pair of headphones, ideally noise cancelling, and a sleep mask, can have the same access to this amazing technology than these high-level, performers that were in these organizations that, again, you and I would never be able to access. So NuCalm is now an app. There is this spectrum of emotional states. I would kind of split it into 2. You have the deregulation suite that they have, So you have their rescue, which is basically addressing our chronic overstimulation and bringing that back down to parasympathetic. You have power nap, which is a 20-minute session, which literally feels like you had a nap. And you're talking to someone, or you're listening to someone who was never able to nap in the fire service, ever, ever, ever. And no matter how much we got murdered, unless it was a structure fire that lasted, 12, 15, 20 hours, then maybe I'd fall asleep when I got home. I've never been able to nap. But with this, you're not taking a nap. It's taking these wavelengths, telling your brain to get into this delta, theta, whichever state it is per app. And then at the end of the session, you literally feel like you had a perfect sleep cycle. It is incredible. And then there's deep sleep, one that you play when you go to bed at night, which encourages your brain to stay in that deep sleep. Because I've suffered from not having problems going to sleep, not having problems getting 7.5, 8 hours, but waking up feeling tired still, clenching my jaw and just not feeling refreshed. So that sleep debt and that inability to get to that deep sleep, I've been using that myself. Then there's another suite, which is upregulation, ignite, flow state, and focus. I haven't even got to play with those yet, but I'm writing a book at the moment, and I can't wait to use those for the creativity side, and also in workouts or pre-workouts, getting to that mindset, for example, jiu-jitsu, where your mind is clear and you're just focusing on flowing with that other person. So for me, a lot of you are in uniform, and if you're not, you're human beings. We're all human beings, but especially, for example, the fire service. A real conundrum for us has been, you're a police officer 8, 12 hours, or a doctor or a nurse, or you're a firefighter 24, 48 hours, and then you stop work and then you go home. And you've gone from seeing or doing God knows what just 2 hours before to now walking through the door as a husband, wife, mother, father, and having to function in a totally different state. How do we punctuate those shifts? And also, and I've heard stories of responders wrecking on the way home and then dying after coming off a shift because they're so tired. And even people that run special operations selection courses, those instructors coming out of, for example, Fort Bragg and then wrecking on the way home. So for me, the rescue or the power nap, to come off shift, go back into the bunk room, go in your car in the parking lot, whatever it is, put on the mask and headphones, take 20 or 30 minutes, down-regulate your nervous system, then drive home and walk through the door in a different state. So that alone, that one element to me is worth, what these subscriptions are, and they're extremely low. But then obviously you've got the ongoing down-regulation through the rescue practice, and then, like I said, the up-regulation. Now you're studying for a promotional test for paramedic school, and as you're studying, you're listening to some of these, and you're getting that more acute focus. Because for me, that busy mind for the fire service made it so hard to read and absorb information. My testimony, as you will hear on the podcast episode, night and day, hands down. It's been a week, one solitary week since I started doing this, and I noticed it immediately. Coming out, like I said, after a power nap, feeling refreshed, coming out of rescue, and even just the best way to describe it is, I did a video a couple years ago where I was in Portugal, and combination of a multitude of things, from not being able to see my family, of COVID, preloading a bunch of episodes to take a trip, sleep deprivation through jet lag, I found myself in one of the deepest depressions I've ever been in. And I'm not normally a depressive person. And the way I could describe it, this depression and anxiety was like the bingo machine, all the balls bouncing around. And then as I started being diligent with meditation and yoga, what it felt like was it turned the blower off. It turned the fan off in the bingo machine. The problems were still there, but they were on the floor. You could line them up and prioritize them. Well, this is what NuCalm has done, like, immediately. And I'm not saying it should be instead of meditation. I'm thinking that this is a great foundation, and then you layer foundation training. Amazing. Doesn't mean you don't have, you stop doing mobility training or strength training or yoga. You can do it as well. It's an adjunct. But to turn off that monkey mind, to bring it down where you're kind of laser focused on, all right, I need to do this and this and this, instead of 1,000, like 10 things bouncing around 1,000 times. Unbelievable. Quality of sleep, I mean, you name it. So this is what the big reveal was. This is what I was so excited about. So go to today's episode with Jim Poole, and then go on your phone. It's an app. Go to NuCalm, NuCalm. Put it on there. As you will hear, if you Google free trial NuCalm, there is even a kind of beta. It's not advertised, but there is a free trial for 7 days. But the one of the two suites is only $29.99 a month. The full gamut is only $49.99 a month. For me, that's cheaper than one meal out a month. But to get the wellness effects that I've seen, I mean, it's invaluable. But you get to try it for free. You can do one suite at a time for just, I think it's $14.99. But I mean, I'm not on here to talk about prices. I'm just here to say, if there is one tool when it comes to regulating the nervous system, and you will hear they're NSF certified for sports. They've got the only patent with this technology in the world. One tool that's truly going to make a huge difference that will then filter into all of your things. I mean, your ability to walk through the door and be a much calmer, happier parent and spouse, for example. I mean, it's priceless. It really is. And this is why I'm prophesizing. This is why I'm shouting from the rooftops, because I am not easily impressed. 7 years, I've had a lot of technologies thrown at me, a lot of psychotherapy modalities and fitness modalities, nutrition modalities. And, you know, this is the good thing. There's a toolbox for everyone, but this particular technology, I think, is going to work for almost everyone. And everyone, maybe some people just aren't quite in that state to do it yet. But so I can't say it enough. If you want to change your life, go to NuCalm, the app, NuCalm, and listen to today's Behind the Shield podcast with Jim Poole. That's it.